Em tore paper from her drawing pad and smoothed it on her art desk. She took a blue crayon and began to draw the outline of a house, her house. Em lived in a blue house, and therefore she liked to draw blue houses. This was her happy place. Em loved making art, and it was this moment, the beginning of something, that was her very favorite. The beginnings of things were always good and almost always perfect. Nothing ruined yet. Em made her way around the tip of the rooftop. It was looking really good. She sighed with relief as she finished up the mailbox. Then her crayon slipped and crossed the paper with a stray mark of blue. Oh no. Em picked up the paper and studied it. She took her blue crayon and drew a big X over the drawing of her house. Then she crumpled the paper and tossed it in the recycling bin. It landed alongside 22 other crumpled papers. Each one held a blue drawing of a house. Each one had something wrong with it. Each one had a big X drawn on top. Em grabbed a new blank piece of paper. Em was 5, and in her 5 long years, in which she'd spent hours at her little art desk, she'd finished a grand total of 3 works of art. She didn't have any of them, though. They were so precious, she'd given them away as gifts. One to her Nana, one to her auntie, one to her best friend. What she did have was a recycling bin filled high with mistakes. Em's mom was not super thrilled about this. She thought it seemed like a big waste of trees. Em did not seem to consider the trees. If you asked the tree that kindly lent itself to this paper, "Hey, would you like a 5-year-old to use you up by putting big X's through her drawings?" the tree would probably say, "I didn't grow up just to have my pulp be used for such nonsense." But we can't ask the tree. Em's 3-year-old sister Lee was not super thrilled about all of this either. She and Em sometimes worked together on drawings, but if Lee drew something differently than Em wanted her to, Em would put a big X through it and crumple it up. Lee would cry, and the whole day would be a little less than it could have been. No one was happy about Em's big X's. No one. Except there was someone who was happy about them. Not actually a person, though. A magical being. Her name was, well, she's magical, and her name can't actually be pronounced well in any of our Earth languages. I could keep going with this story by calling her the magical being who plays a big role in this story, but that would get very repetitive, so let's not do that. If I'm absolutely forced to call her something, I suppose I will call her Artiste. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We'll have to rewind a bit and go back in time to when Artiste's life changed forever. About 27.5 weeks ago, in a land of magical beings far away from our own, Artiste was rifling through her closet, trying to find the saddle she used to ride her unicorn, Sammy. As she grasped in the dark, the light had broken. Not everything can be magical. She fell against the back wall, and she felt the wall give way. It was a door that was opening. Huh, strange. Why would there be a door in the back of her closet? At first, Artiste imagined there might be oranges back there. In her world, oranges grew in the dark like mushrooms. So she got very excited, way too excited about these oranges. But there were no oranges. There was a colorful, swirling, sparkling vortex. So Artiste went to close the door, and then she thought, hey, I wonder why there's a swirling, sparkling vortex in the back of my closet. She decided to step into it, just to see. It turns out, when you encounter a swirling vortex in the back of your closet, it's a bit of a find. Because when Artiste stepped into it, she was transported out of her closet and into our world, Earth. And she landed in what appeared to be a gorgeous art museum. She gasped. I can't handle all this beauty, she muttered to herself, barely able to get the words out. But it was not actually an art museum at all. It was a recycling bin next to a red house. Easy mistake for her to make, given that used-up paper was considered very beautiful in her world of magical beings. When Artiste uncrumpled the gorgeous balls of paper, she saw actual artwork by a tiny person with big X's scrawled on top. And that's when she knew she had really hit the jackpot. She stuffed the papers into every pocket she had. The pocket in her hat, the pockets in her shoes, and the pockets in her socks. Then she stepped back through the great swirling vortex and returned home. Obviously, she rocketed to stardom once she showcased her finds. She added some color here and there, and then hung her found art in a gallery in the center of town. Magical beings from all over came to gaze upon these works of wonder. They cried actual tears of diamonds as they took in the splendor of these treasures. Artiste was written up in every scroll across the land. The pockets in her hat and socks overflowed with platinum buttons. She had made it. About once every few weeks after that, Artiste slipped away to her closet and stepped through the great swirling vortex. And every time she landed in the exact same recycling bin, outside the exact same red house. And every single time she found countless works of art, all with their gorgeous big X's through them. And every time she filled the pockets in her hat and socks with these treasures and stepped back into her own world. Until one day, Artiste stepped through the magical swirling vortex and landed in the recycling bin in front of the red house, and all she found were cans and empty bottles and empty yogurt containers. And Artiste wondered whether those yogurt containers really belonged in there, and she decided not to overthink it because she would probably never get a straight answer on that question. But in the depths of that recycling bin, there were no works of art. After this happened 7 times, and she continued to encounter only cans and bottles and the questionable yogurt containers, Artiste realized something. If she wanted to find more art with which to adorn her gallery walls, she'd have to venture outside of the formerly gorgeous art museum of the recycling bin, into the outer world. Meantime, it was a Saturday, and it was raining, which meant Em was at her art desk. Em's mom had asked her to make a card for her pop-up's birthday, so Em was drawing a birthday cake with very, very tall candles. Lee wandered over and did something little sisters tend to do. She leaned over M's card and put her face very close to it and started making noises like
beep beep boop boop bop, beep boop bop beep boop beep, beep bop beep boop boop bop beep.
M tried to ignore this. She finished her card and held it up to look at it. That candle, M's little sister said, pointing at one of the spindly ones. That candle is a little bit crooked. Now, you might think, Lee is 3. She had no idea the effect her words might have on her big sister. But you would be wrong. Because there are things that are true about 3-year-olds. They're a bit wild, and they are very crafty. And there are things that are true about little sisters. They are very sweet and funny and darling. I should know, I am one myself. And they are also a little bit too clever. And if they happen upon a large button, they will immediately push that button, if you get my meaning. Lee let her little comment hang in the air, and she watched as her big sister's eyebrows knitted together, and she just waited and made her little noises again.
Beep beep bobby boo boo bop boo boo bee boo boo bobby boo boo.
She was not disappointed. Moments later, M took a red crayon and made a big X over the card. She crumpled it up. Then she walked outside and tossed it into the recycling bin. She went inside to start over again. 2 seconds after M disappeared into her house, across space and time and other dimensions and all that, Artiste stepped through the swirling, sparkling vortex in the back of her closet. She was magically transported into her usual recycling bin outside the red house. Artiste glanced around, but again, there were only cans and bottles and some flyers from a place called Costco. She took just, a real quick look at those and then got back on track. For the very first time, she climbed up the side of the recycling bin. She scrambled against the plastic. She felt the sun on her face. She reached the edge of the bin and toppled to the ground. Ouch! Artiste crept along the ground, down the sidewalk, away from the red house, until she heard something horrible that she'd never heard before. Oh, no, not like that. That would have been a lot scarier. No, it was like this. This horrible, frightening sound was getting louder and louder, and Artiste started running and leapt into the nearest recycling bin to escape. It happened to be next to a blue house. M's blue house. Artiste cowered in the recycling bin until the noise got quieter and quieter. She finally took a look around, and she smiled. In the few minutes since M had tossed her first birthday card, she deposited 3 more in the recycling bin, and they were all right there, ready for Artiste. She uncrumpled each one and studied them. She couldn't believe her luck. These were similar to the works she used to find, covered in big X's, but otherwise they were totally different. These works of art would show the other magical beings she could change up her style. She tucked each one into the pockets in her socks, making sure not to tear them. Then she readied herself to climb out of the bin until she heard... Uh-oh. Artiste quickly hid under a plastic container. But it didn't occur to her that it was a clear plastic container. M appeared above her, hand up, ready to drop another failed birthday card. But she stopped when she saw Artiste. M had never seen a magical being before, so it was pretty alarming. She stopped and stood still. Artiste wondered why the footsteps had stopped and peeked upward. M was staring at her through the plastic container. Oh no. Artiste made a quick calculation and dashed out from under the container, scrambled up the side of the recycling bin, and ran as fast as she possibly could without looking back. She leapt into her usual recycling bin and hurled herself through the swirling, sparkling vortex. She landed in her closet with a thump, with her heart hammering in her chest, trying to catch her breath. She pulled out the beautiful works of art from her sock pockets. She smoothed them out flat. Jackpot. Artiste began folding up her new finds to carry them over to her gallery when she heard a great rush of wind. Oh, what's happening? Suddenly, M fell through the swirling vortex and landed in Artiste's closet. M and Artiste stared at each other. What are you doing in my closet? Artiste glanced around quickly, like someone taken by surprise by a house guest before they'd done any cleaning. M glanced around too, and her eyes went wide. It was unlike any closet M had ever seen. It was covered in sparkling vines, and there were little purple clouds floating through the air. Artiste started shooing the clouds away as if they were dust on bookshelves. M watched her. This is your closet? Yeah, this is my closet. What a strange question. I've just never seen a closet like this. Artiste finished with the clouds and looked M in the eye. I'm really fascinated by your sense of wonder and all that, but look, what are you doing here? I followed you. Why would you do that? You took my drawings? It was weird. Artiste crossed her arms. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Those. M pointed at the ground, where Artiste had laid them out flat. Those things I drew and crossed out. You took them. Oh, those. Right. What are you doing with them? You know, you should really go back through the vortex. M looked back at the vortex, alarmed. Why, is it about to close up or something? Oh, no. I mean, maybe? I'll go back, M said, after you tell me why you took my drawings. This tiny human person was very strong-willed. Artiste knew next to nothing about humans, other than that they wore hats and socks with no pockets. Artiste couldn't begin to understand pocketless hats and socks. What was the point? Fine, come with me. Artiste gathered up the papers and put them in her pockets. She started out of the closet. Wait, where are we going? Telling you won't work very well. I'll have to show you. I'll bring you right back. Trust me, we do not need any small humans wandering around here. M frowned, but followed Artiste out of her closet into the world of magical beings. Under a violet sky with what looked to be 3 distant moons, Artiste and M made their way to, well, M wasn't sure where they were going. They crossed a bridge, one of those rickety suspension types that shake with every step. Above a churning river filled with sparkling water, sea creatures with long necks and big, cow-like eyes gazed up at them. They sounded like cows, too. Once over the bridge, they passed through an orchard of trees bearing fruit that looked a lot like glass marbles that clicked against one another. Then they waited for a group of unicorns to cross the path and finally came to a door. Just a door, with nothing surrounding it. A neon-colored snake that, instead of hissing, sang like a chicken, slithered past the door and winked at Em. Em looked at Artiste for a reaction, but Artiste was already striding up to the door, oblivious. Artiste knocked many, many times. Em could not understand why she needed to knock so many times, but she added that to the piles of strange things she'd seen in the last 20 minutes. And the door creaked open. Em followed Artiste inside. It was Artiste's art gallery. The walls were a chalky white, and the ceilings were very high. So high, in fact, that Em couldn't make them out. The air above swirled with more of those purple clouds. "Here we are," Artiste said, gesturing up at her works of art. Em finally noticed the drawings. She went up to one. It was a picture of a family drawn in crayons. There was a big X out on top of the people. The paper looked like it had been crumpled up and then flattened out. Em looked at the little note by its side, but the symbols were like nothing she'd ever seen. The others were similar. They each showed people, stick figures with big heads and little ears and big hands. And they each had a big X over top. "Where did you get these?" "Oh, these. Yeah, these are what got me here. Aren't they beautiful?" Em looked closer. They were actually quite good. Without the big X's, they would be really nice. The family members in the drawings were always holding hands, like they really liked each other. She wondered why the person who had drawn them had crossed them out. I couldn't believe my luck when I found them. The big X's are amazing, aren't they? The X's? Yeah, that's what makes the pictures so very special. It gives them depth. Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound outside. Time to open. Em watched as Artiste went to the door and opened it. Dozens of magical beings streamed inside. They began pacing around, looking up at the drawings on the walls. They were smiling and oohing and awing. A trio of dragons drifted over and gazed up at the crumpled papers.
Gorgeous.
"You've outdone yourself, Artiste."
I must have this one.
Em watched as these magical creatures swooned over a child's rejected artwork. Artiste sidled up beside her. "So, do you get it now?" "Not really. I have a lot of questions. I mean, first, why do everyone's hats and socks have pockets? So weird. But also, these drawings were all made by the same kid, right?" "Yeah." "Then why did you end up in my recycling bin?" "Your what?" "The big blue thing?" "Oh, your art museum. Right. Why did you take my drawings if you could get so many from this kid?" "Well, he stopped crossing out his drawings. He stopped throwing them into his art museum. I mean, his recycling bin." "What do you mean he stopped?" I peeked in his window of the red house. He's keeping his drawings now. They're on the wall. He's keeping them." Em repeated. Yeah. Did they still look like this? The family? And the holding hands? And the smiles? They look the same to me. But, of course, without the big X's, I would have no use for them. But yeah, they're the same. Em looked up at the drawings again, then looked at her own drawings nearby. She felt something click in her brain. I have to go. Oh, so soon? I felt like maybe we were unexpectedly becoming friends. We were, but I'm really sorry. I have to go. Can I come back to your art museum? I mean, your whatever you call it? Yes. Em gave Artiste a quick hug and slipped out the door of the gallery. She waited for another group of unicorns to cross the path, skipped through the orchard of trees with glass marbles, and inched over the shaky bridge as the sea creatures stretched their long necks to get a look at her. She made her way back into Artiste's closet. The swirling vortex appeared and she stepped through it, landing in her neighbor's gorgeous recycling bin. Em climbed out and ran back to her house. That afternoon, Em sat down at her art desk. She took a blank piece of paper from her drawing pad and smoothed it out. Her little sister Lee appeared as if by magic near Em's elbow. Em began drawing her house with a blue crayon. She outlined the roof and the windows. She even drew some flowers in the front yard. Her hand slipped a little bit when she drew the tree in her yard. So she extended the stray mark into a branch and added some leaves. She drew the sun and gave it a smiley face. Em's little sister pointed to the bird in the tree. I think that bird has too many feathers. Em just shook her head. Em used a thumbtack to hang her drawing up above her art desk. It looked very lonely on the wall all by itself. So Em drew 3 more drawings of other things. Her family, her school, her science kit, and she put those up there too. A few days a week, Em sat at her art desk and drew and drew. She moved on from the blue house to many other things. Unicorns, bridges, sea creatures, dragons, magical trees. Anything she could imagine, really. They all ended up on the wall, except for when they became cards to give out on birthdays or just because. One day, Em sat down and worked on a drawing for a while. It was hard to get it quite right. After finishing it, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. Lee came over and looked at the drawing. Who is that person? It's not a person. It's a magical being. Why does it have pockets and it sucks? That's silly. You know what? You're right. Em smiled. She took her crayon and drew a big X over top of the drawing. She added a smiley face and a heart in the corner. Lee looked at her curiously, but just went about singing again. Em crumpled the paper and walked it outside to the recycling bin. This was not her only visit out there. Every few weeks, after finishing her art for the day, Em drew a perfectly nice drawing and put a big X through it and walked outside. Her friend, Artiste, had done her a big favor. She figured the least she could do was give her a priceless piece of art once in a while.